Wife cheated with my ex-employee from my place of work in front of our son. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are both 26, and we have a 5-year-old son and 10-month-old girl together. I work as one of the managers at an IT company whilst she works as a receptionist at a hospital. She hasn't been working much due to pregnancy and maternity leave. I'm quite an outgoing person, whereas she is quite introverted and only really enjoys spending time with close family members. Her family plus me and the children, and friends she's known since childhood. On Saturday, July 1, 2023, an ex-employee from my place of work, age 23, came to my house thinking I would be around because he knows I don't work on Saturdays. He wanted to give me important documents that I had left at his house the previous day when we were discussing work-related matters. My wife opened the door and didn't know who he was, so he explained himself that he works for me, and then she allowed him inside and offered him coffee whilst he waits for me. I was at my parents' house 5 miles away. This is what happened next, according to this ex-employee, as best I can, remembering him saying over the phone 2 days ago. Our conversation: employee: do you know about me and your wife? Me: what do you mean? Explain. Employee: remember that day last month when you weren't home and I came to drop off documents, and sorry, because I should have called you beforehand. Me: yes, so what? Employee: after your wife invited me in and offered to make coffee, we began to talk and quickly bonded over literature. She was very friendly, and I know what I'm about to tell you was very wrong of me to do, but we started kissing, and your son, who came into the living room at that moment, then asked who I was, and she told him not to worry, that he should just go watch TV. We then went upstairs and, slept together. Me: are you joking? Because if you're just trying to cause trouble, don't. Employee: no, it's not a lie. I just thought I would tell you because that little boy saw his mother with someone else, and years down the line, if you ever did find out, I wouldn't want you to think that I scared a little boy without caring. Remember that your wife is the married one, not me. I didn't force her. Me: I don't believe you at all. Employee: that is why I resigned. July 7th. Because I didn't know whether you knew or not and would rather resign than have a sacking on my record. Me: I'll ask her, and if true, I'll deal with you appropriately. Employee: okay, but like I said, I didn't force her. Not did I do anything illegal. You won't hear from me again, sorry. I was livid with anger and hurt at the same time. This is an employee who only started working for me in May, and I'm certain she never even knew he existed up until that day. I asked her, who denied it at first, but then owned up to what happened after she realized the severity of the situation, including the employee quitting. She said she is very sorry and doesn't know what came over her. I then said, apparently our son saw you. And then she began crying. I said to her that I was going to stay with my parents for a few days whilst I decide what to do. My parents, and even her family members too, are very supportive of me and do not condone what she did. I've seen my son on FaceTime and baby daughter too, and told them that I will be with them soon. I've decided that there is no coming back from this and will definitely get a divorce from my wife, but the only issue is custody and finances. I don't want to be like the many men who get a divorce due to the fault of their wives only to lose the house and only see the kids on the weekends. How do I go about this to ensure I don't lose the house and that I see my kids as equally if not more than her? I live in England, BTW, second story. I wanted to post my story here, because this sub is filled with poor souls who have experienced the worst of the worst of the worst. I was one of you once. I walked in on my first ex balls deep in another woman on my bed once. But this cheating story I want to share is different. I want to give the other end of the cheating spectrum, and why you're always valid for leaving over any level of infidelity. I'm 2 for 2 on cheating husbands, but this time, the pain is in my hands and on my terms. My ex was raised by a single mom. His dad left his mother with 3 young boys to pursue a younger woman and new family, and my ex always said he would never cheat because of how it destroyed his mother. I believed him. When we first met, he confessed he's been sexually active with over 500 women. I believed him, but this was a red flag to me. When I asked why me out of 500, he always told me I'm marriage material, mother material, that I love him for him, unlike those other women who only cared about dick and money. I shouldn't have quieted that place in my mind that said red flag, but I did. But aside from that, he was perfect, until he wasn't. I found flirty messages on his phone to 4 different girls. The girls weren't even flirting back, just being friendly, but his messages made him seem like a single man out to get laid. No insinuations of an affair were made, and I highly doubt he physically cheated, but the act of seeking out other women for romance, I couldn't suffer it. I confronted him calmly and ended it right there. In his defense, he's playing the role of the perfect, remorseful gentleman. He hasn't blamed me, lied, gaslight, or diminished my feelings. He immediately fessed up to the flirting and did everything right. He told me there is just too much temptation out there and he was only seeking validation due to low self-esteem and it isn't my fault. But it isn't enough, and that's okay. He told me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself to you. You're perfect and I'll never stop working to deserve you. I'll go to therapy, I'll give you my phone, I'll delete social media, etc. But what about me? What about my life with you? Am I to spend the only life I've got with a man I'll never trust? If you have to spend a lifetime trusting someone, what is the point? The foundation is shattered. And if I am so perfect, then why wasn't I enough in the first place for you? I won't be with a man who has to completely delete social media just to behave. I won't build the foundation of a family with a man who is made of sand, and I'm not jealous. I don't care about him talking to women, but I care when he disrespects our relationship to seek out romantic extracurriculars. He would never tolerate me texting another man, hey there sexy smiling face with heart eyes, so why so I left. I left my marriage over flirty Instagram messages, because I won't spend my life looking over my shoulder. I would rather be alone than miserable, and for people who still enjoy the high of flirting with strangers, just because you don't fuck doesn't mean it isn't cheating. Flirting busts holes in foundations, and those foundations are a hell of a lot harder to repair than they are to build. So do yourself a favor and don't get in a relationship if you still desire this kind of narcissistic validation. It's okay if you're single, but not if you're taken, and if you've ever been told that leaving over harmless texts is just throwing a relationship away, do yourself a favor as well and find someone worth building a future with, that's all. And to my ex-husband, one day when your beautiful blue eyes are covered in cataracts, and your muscles turn to flab, and your thick dark hair starts to thin and fall out, I hope you're happy, because the high of sexting pretty girls and having them respond will fade quickly. One day, if you don't change, you're going to look around and find an empty household. Money, attractiveness, material possessions, it never mattered love. I hope you learn that lesson before it's too late. I would have been there, and I think you know it, but I will never be a doormat. Best of luck in your Tinder endeavors. I am many things, but I am not one of 500. Thrid story. Let me paint the picture. My husband and I have been together for 19 years. He was my very first boyfriend at 18 years old, and we lost our virginity to each other. We were inseparable and a model of love and a healthy relationship to our friends. About 5 years ago, I gave birth to our son after years of infertility. It was truly a miracle. This is when things got difficult. My husband was now the breadwinner as I began my new role as a mom. When my son was a year old, I experienced a miscarriage. This was right after I stopped breastfeeding and my hormones were a wreck and depression was really sinking in. My husband felt I was pulling away from him, and started investigating. For the next 3 years, he accused me of cheating on him with all our guy friends. Then he thought I had a boyfriend. His thoughts morphed into thinking I was a prostitute, entertaining men during nap time. He set up hidden cameras and recording devices around the house to catch me. I felt so much pity for my husband. I encouraged him to go to therapy because his ability to thinking rationally seemed compromised. We tried couples counseling, but the accusations continued, the emotional abuse continued, intimacy was strained because he was looking at me like a slut, but felt like I had to please him to help him feel better. Last year I listened to my gut, and I did not sleep with him for about a month. My depression was at its worst, and I was starting Lexapro. At a small get-together with friends, my husband went on a walk with my best friend, the wife of his best friend. They have an open relationship, and it was overheard that she was telling my husband that humans are not meant to be monogamous. I noticed her touching his knee too comfortably, and I felt like vomiting. They planned a game night, and my husband planned to spend the night. Since the game was so long and boring, I wasn't invited. I am not stupid. My husband was too excited about this night and had really been looking forward to it. Right before he left, I asked him not to sleep with her. He seemed shocked and flabbergasted that I would even mention something so wild. I told him if I didn't say it I would regret it later. Even while I was showing apprehension, he still laughed. He returned the next day, and after being awkward for hours, he finally told me what happened. This almost 40-year-old tells me he hooked up with her, using such casual language when up to this point we had only ever had sex with each other. I have since moved out, but he is determined to win me back. I am not sure I could endure more of this toxic relationship. The next chapter is very scary. I have never dated another person in my life, but even being alone has to be better than this kind of emotional abuse. My parents want me to work it out with him, my friends are supportive of me and happy I've finally left. Healing can be lonely and scary, but I am hoping for a better future for me and my son.